What's up, guys? My name is John Evans. I coach many of the highest jumpers in the world, and I've helped thousands of athletes jump higher, get healthy, and regain their confidence. In this video, I'm going to tell you 3 ways that you can maximize your recovery without steroids. Number 1, you need to maximize your sleep. Sleep is the easiest way to recover. It's the simplest thing you can do, and it's the lowest hanging fruit if you're looking to adapt better to the workouts that you're doing to jump higher. One example of this is a sleep study that demonstrated that athletes who sleep at least 9 hours a night had consistently less injuries than athletes who got less than 9 hours of sleep a night. One potential reason for this is that when you have high quality sleep, you're able to boost both growth hormone and testosterone. Now, growth hormone is pulsatile, so it peaks at different times throughout the day, but the quality of the sleep is actually going to dictate the amount of growth hormone that is released by your body and thus how much you'll be able to recover from a given session, because growth hormone is an incredibly potent anabolic hormone that will help you recover to stressful workouts. It typically peaks about 60 to 90 minutes after you've started your deep sleep cycle. If you get in bed before 10, you can actually increase this amount marginally, and that could make the difference between you increasing an inch in 6 months if you're an elite level, or if you're a newer athlete, increasing 3 to 5 inches within 6 months. Growth hormone is also super important because it does help your collagen resynthesis. Now remember, your tendons are made of different types of collagen, and if you have better collagen, your tendon could potentially function better, and this is one potential mechanism and why sleep is super important. Now, disruptors of your sleep is obviously going to be alcohol. So you want to minimize alcohol to as low as possible. I would recommend drinking earlier in the day if you're going to do it. Maybe you day drink with your friends or things like that, or just completely cut it out. It's not going to help your performance, and you really want to minimize alcohol consumption. Chronic stress can also limit the efficacy of the growth hormone as it binds to different receptors. It decreases this, and it also causes the production of cortisol. Now, cortisol is going to impede the ability of testosterone and growth hormone to function optimally. So you want to decrease your stress levels as much as possible. Walk your dog, cuddle with your dog, hang out with your girlfriend. Try to minimize your stress levels because this will help you recover better, and again, increase your vertical by getting max adaptation to each workout. Now, another thing that can actually blunt growth hormone and testosterone's efficacy is going to be the amount of insulin that you produce. If you have a very low insulin sensitivity, this means that testosterone and growth hormone are not going to be able to function optimally, and so you really want to try to maximize your insulin sensitivity because that's going to maximize the efficacy of those hormones and thus, again, recovery. Now, testosterone is slightly different than growth hormone. It increases as you sleep and peaks when you wake up. So it's not pulsatile like growth hormone. It doesn't peak and drop and peak and drop. It just slowly increases as you sleep. Again, the most important thing is going to be the quality of your sleep and not the amount of your sleep. So if you're staying up later and you're getting less sleep, but the sleep that you're getting is super restful, then you're maximizing the amount of testosterone or growth hormone versus potentially getting more sleep, but being stressed because you can't fall asleep or waking up or rolling throughout the night. It's better that you're tired and when you fall asleep, you're asleep, than it is to force yourself to go to bed earlier and potentially get a marginal increase from that natural hormone boost that you get around 10 p.m. Now, things that decrease the efficacy, as I've said, alcohol and actually THC. So smoking weed is also going to decrease the efficacy of testosterone. Again, if you have very high insulin resistance or very low insulin sensitivity, then testosterone is not going to be able to function optimally, and you're going to decrease your gains, you're not going to jump higher, you're not going to increase your muscle mass, and that's ultimately going to limit your ability to get better. Before I go any further, if you guys are interested in getting coached by us, then go to THPStrength.com. We charge 90% off your first month, so for $12, you can get on a call. The coach will work with you, make sure that you understand exactly why you're doing what you're doing, how to use the service optimally, take best advantage of it, and see maximum gains. Generally, we see people improve about 3 inches within 6 months. That's just an average, but it could be far higher than that if you maximize the things that we're talking about in this video. Number 2, we're going to talk about diet. Now, sleep and diet are the 2 easiest levers that you can pull to maximize your recovery. Obviously, the 3 macronutrients are going to be fat, protein, and carbohydrates. Carbohydrates you're going to want to use for energy. Generally, I recommend guys take in about 2.5 grams per pound. This is about double the amount of protein that you want to take in, which I would recommend anywhere from 0.8 grams per pound or 1 gram per pound. Lastly, your fat content you actually are going to want to take in. The reason for this is that your hormones are actually lipids, and as a result, you need to take in fat to maximize the production of them and allow them to function in the body optimally. So about 30% of your diet should come from good fats. This means not taking in like seed oils or soy oils or things like that. You want to maximize avocado oil, olive oil, get your fat from animal products. Even saturated fat can actually boost your testosterone, which will help you adapt. Now, if you have high blood pressure or you have these other indicators of potentially morbidity or mortality, you're going to want to minimize that. So maybe talk to your doctor if you're concerned, but roughly about 30% of that should come from good fats. So animal products. Eggs are an incredible source of good fats. So if you're looking for something cheap and easy, I I highly encourage you to try to get in anywhere from 3 to 6 eggs a day. When I was training my absolute hardest, I was eating a ton of eggs that allowed me to get my protein intake up, but make sure that I was hitting some of those fat requirements that I had. Now, one thing I will say is that egg yolks do have a lot of fat, so maybe you do something like use 4 egg whites and then 2 full eggs. This also boosts IGF-1, which is a very anabolic hormone that helps you produce more muscle mass. This is why taking in more fats is not only good for your testosterone, but it's also really, really good for your IGF-1, which there's a whole cascade of different pathways that these different hormones use to work together to allow you to be anabolic and produce more muscle mass. 2 other quick recommendations: I would take in a whey isolate protein that's very high in leucine. The one that I really like is Optimum Nutrition. I know Thorne has really good products, and there are a few other brands out there that I would recommend. Off the top of my head, those are the 2 that come to mind. The reason why leucine is so important is because it's an amino acid that limits the production of muscle mass. So it is a rate limiting amino acid. If you take in a bunch of the other amino acids or protein sources that are low in leucine, you actually limit your muscle production, and that ultimately is not what we want. The second recommendation is if you're looking to get more protein in, I would recommend taking casein overnight. Casein is absorbed more slowly and can potentially increase your gains if you take it at the right time. The last recommendation for diet would be taking in a high quality multivitamin. The one that I really liked was Legion Supplements. I know there's been a couple people out there that have said they don't really like it. I had a really good experience with it. It is like 4 horse pills, but it makes sure that you get all of the required amounts of your micronutrients. So things like vitamin C, vitamin D, magnesium, zinc, they're gonna reach research-backed levels for those given micronutrients. And so I'd recommend taking that if you're worried that you're not getting enough vegetables in or your variety in your diet is very low. If your variety is low, you're gonna have a hard time getting in those micronutrients. So consider getting a high quality multivitamin if you want to maximize your recovery. Lastly, we're going to talk about monitoring. Now, monitoring could be as simple as every day you're testing your tendon pain scores. If you want to recover better, then you need to keep a good tab on this metric. If you're feeling pain and you work through something, or you have a jump session, when you're feeling a 3 in your Achilles or your patella, this could ultimately lead to a rupture. Generally, if you're at a point where your tendons are kind of fragile or finicky, if you push through that, you're at a way higher risk of tearing those tendons. Tendons store and release energy. They're one of the things that augment our force production and jumping and running faster. And so you want to keep those healthy. You're going to want to track that pain score day to day. For example, every morning, Isaiah actually sends me his pain scores during his isometric testing. This allows us to have a baseline. We keep it super consistent and minimize variables, so we know what in the training is allowing him to move forward and what in the training is causing him to take steps backwards. Another metric that I've used in the past is called HRV. Now, HRV is heart rate variability. It's kind of blown up in the last 10 years or so. In 2017 or 2016, I actually talked with a guy named Andrew Flatt, who was doing a lot of research at, I believe, Alabama with the football team. And what he essentially found is that this correlates really well, or is a direct measure of your autonomic nervous system. Now, your autonomic nervous system is the part of your nervous system that is automatic. This controls things like your heart rate, and this is a measure of your ability to rest and digest. Now, it correlates incredibly well with cardiorespiratory endurance type events. So if you're a distance runner, you're a cyclist, maybe you're a basketball player, this is a really good way to tell how recovered your cardiorespiratory system is, and if it's okay for you to push during a session that is endurance-based. Now, as speed power athletes, I wouldn't necessarily recommend making decisions off this, but it does tell you the state that your body is in terms of resting and digesting. Remember, we're trying to maximize the absorption of a lot of the things that we previously talked about. So if your body is in a more restful state, you could potentially be absorbing more of those micronutrients, those macronutrients, and optimizing your recovery. Again, I would not recommend making decisions strictly off of this metric. Another super easy metric that you can use to assess your fatigue is going to be grip strength. Grip strength dynamometers are relatively cheap, they're very easy to do, and they don't tax the nervous system nearly as much as something like a standing counter movement jump, an RSI test, or a 30-meter sprint. You could simply track this over time, and as it changes and you know your baseline, you can kind of make assessments as to how ready you are for the given task that you're doing. Remember, we're trying to keep training stimuli complementary and compatible, and it's incredibly important to recruit those high threshold motor units to allow you to create peak force, peak RFD, maximize the stretch shortening cycle, and allow you to jump higher over time. Another potential metric that you could use that is a little bit more pricey is something called Omega Wave. Now, Omega Wave uses a DC current in your brain. I believe they put electrodes on your head, and it does allow you to get an assessment of your readiness for highly neurally taxing activities like sprinting, like jumping, like power cleans, like heavy squats. One athlete that I know uses this personally is Cody Bidlow. He's told me that it helps him make decisions for himself if he's kind of in a pickle, doesn't know whether he should push close to a meet or close to a hard session where he really wants to maximize his adaptation. Another one that we've seen that highly highly correlates with your readiness is going to be time to peak velocity. Now, the reason for this is because it's an acceleration indices. If you're only looking at the peak bar speed that you're getting, it doesn't necessarily tell you how you got that peak bar speed. Did it happen fast? Did it happen slow? Did it happen in a short period of time or a fast period of time? We want to generate force fast, and especially if you're a sprinter or a 1 foot jumper, early RFD is an incredibly important metric that will dictate your success in those events. Now, as a whole, when you're using these metrics, you want to track them over time, and then you want to get a good idea of what your baseline is. If the baseline is dropping over time, you know that it's time to recover. Now, generally speaking, if I'm looking at these metrics, I want to see it depressed for about a week, maybe even 2, before I decide to back off. Another easy way to tell is how are you jumping. If you're consistently having bad jump sessions and you're training really hard, the cause of that is going to be fatigue. If you back off from that training and you recover optimally, then what you're going to be able to get is super compensation. This is where your performance improves as fatigue drops off and your fitness level stays relatively high. That's the video, guys. If you have any questions, please leave it in the comment section below. Please make sure you like and subscribe. It helps me massively, keeps me motivated, and helps me keep producing good content for you guys.